to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Talent Optimization Podcast. My name is Tracy Shirk. I'm the Chief Talent Officer here at Elevated Talent Consulting, and we are in November, and we are talking about gratitude. And gratitude is one of those things that we definitely want to share that gratitude with each other. And, something that's really interesting is so often we do not share our gratitude with others. And we know this because a recent Inc. article stated that 79% of employees quit because they're not appreciated at work. And when we think about that 79% of the folks that are leaving because they're not appreciated, that tells us that we're not showing gratitude for our staff and what they are specifically doing. So I have a very special guest with me today. Katie Wheelock is with me, and Katie is the Program and HR Director at Community Action. And Katie and I have actually worked off and on together for a very long time. So Katie, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm really excited to be here and just to be working with you again.
Yeah. So before we started recording, and I said, whoa, wait. As we were talking about gratitude, we're saying, hey, this is number 97. And at one point in time, Katie was helping me out almost 5 years ago when I first started this business. And I had this crazy idea to start a podcast.
Yes, you did. Not a crazy idea, though.
And we started to come up with a list, I think, back then.
Yes, we went out for lunch one day and we were making a list of possible topics and possible guests to bring on. And here we are. You're at number 97. So that's pretty awesome.
And you're finally on it.
And I am finally on it. We've been working on this for a while.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being here and for the laughter and the support and the bouncing ideas off and on that happen all of the time. So, as we dig into this, I'm so curious about how do you show gratitude to staff at work?
There's several different ways that you can do it. So first, just for a little bit of background, I come from the nonprofit sector. So when we're really thinking about gratitude, oftentimes I think what employees or employers think about is how to show gratitude with gifts. So like gift cards or, big awards or something like that. But that's not necessarily how you have to show gratitude. And working in the nonprofit sector where we don't have money that we can really do that, we really have to get creative in the way that we let our employees know that we really truly appreciate them. And so really, one of the most basic ways that I show gratitude to my employees is I just let them know. I say, thank you. We're working on a project. They put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. Just a simple thank you goes a long way, letting them know that you see them, that you recognize their work, that sure, maybe it's part of their job duties, but they didn't have to put in that amount of effort, so just letting them know that you see it and how it contributes to the work that's being done as well. Another way that I really like to show gratitude to my employees is simply by giving them a thank you card as well. And truthfully, Tracy, you were really well at this when we worked together. So when you were my supervisor, one of the things I really appreciated is that you were always letting me know that you saw me, that you appreciated what I did.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's really important is gratitude is not a one size fits all, right? So every single one of us have different behavioral styles, different styles that we work in. And I have a hot little book that I just grabbed actually, and it's the 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace by Gary Chapman and Paul White. And this is the same person that wrote the 5 love languages, right? And I think one thing that's really important is knowing what your employees need based on their language of appreciation or based on their behavioral style, because some folks want that public appreciation. Some want that really quiet handwritten note. Some want you to sit down next to them and actually do the work with them. And that is how you're going to show appreciation. So, it's like if I write a handwritten card to someone that wants you to sit down and work with them, they're going to see that almost as a slight versus as supporting them and showing that appreciation. And so I'm not trying to make this tricky. The easiest way to figure out how they want to be appreciated is really simple.
Get to know your employees.
Yeah. Just ask the question.
Ask them.
How do you want to be appreciated, right?
Absolutely. Gratitude does not fit into a single box. Workforces are diverse. And so the way that you show gratitude needs to be diverse as well.
Yeah. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how do we show gratitude in a virtual environment as well. And some of the same things apply as asking the question, right? How do you want to be appreciated? What does that look like for you so that you're doing that in the way that works for them? And one of the things that I'm noticing with the clients we're working with in remote teams is don't forget to get the gift card to wherever, if you're doing lunches and meetings and those kind of things that you do for the folks in person. Because as we show gratitude, it's one of the ways we show gratitude in-house is the snack bar, or the lunch, or the donuts, or whatever. Don't forget to show that same gratitude for your remote staff.
Absolutely.
So let's shift a little bit, because I love how we set this up to talk about how do we show up for our staff, and now how do we show up for our peers?
Yeah. So, that can kind of get tricky, especially because I don't think most people think about showing gratitude to their peers, someone who they would maybe look at as being on the same level of them. But it's really important to, because your peers are the ones who are supporting you in your role. And so one of my favorite ways to show that support to my peers is just to let them know that I am available for them, that I'm available to help them. If they're getting ready to go on PTO to take some time off, to let them know that you don't need to be checking your emails. You don't need to be checking your phone when you're gone. I can take care of it for you. So just letting them feel totally supported that way, but also letting them know that you're also there to listen to, because sometimes all we need for that support is just to know someone is listening to us, that we can bounce ideas around with, or just, we're human. We all sometimes need some venting sessions. So just someone that they can rely on to be able to speak with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other thing with showing gratitude for peers is sometimes it's just acknowledging what they're doing and knowing what's also going on in their personal lives too. Like you mentioned PTO, but it's like, hey, if I know that Katie has something going on with her husband at 5:00, I'm not going to bump in her office at 4:45. Or if something comes up, I'm just going to let the team know, hey, I got this. Katie's out at 5 and I really want to support her. So nothing after 4:30, right? Or whatever that is.
Yep. And I think that's great because that's helping. It's also helping them to set their boundaries as well. And for them to know that, hey, you know what, I can stick to these. Yeah. So, it's just great all around.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, this is something that gets missed so often. And that is, how do we show gratitude to our managers, to our leadership team, to our board, right? Because so often we complain about our managers and our leadership and our board, but how do you show gratitude for that?
Yeah. And truthfully, I think, for me, this is one of the most important ones, because the one thing I've learned during my career is that it tends to be those positions that are a little bit higher up, but they're really some of the loneliest positions within an organization, because they don't have that same level of support that most everyone else does. And so they don't always get that recognition or that gratitude that they deserve as well. So really, one of my favorite ways to do that is just to check in with them. Like, I am constantly checking in with our executive director just to see how he is doing, encouraging him to take the time needed to rest and just recover, and letting him know that we appreciate everything you do for the organization, but we also have your back as well. So that's one of my favorite ways. Again, just even the little things. I'm always going to go back to thank you notes. They mean so much to people, just being seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And gratitude really is, it's saying, I see you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. And so is there anything that you want to share that's happened inside of your organization? You've talked a lot about the thank you cards.
Yeah. So one thing that really stuck out to me when I first started in this role, and I had a few new direct reports reporting to me, is one thing that I like to do on their anniversaries is to send them a handwritten thank you note. And this is coming from me as their supervisor, not as an HR professional. Because I think, anniversaries, it's not abnormal to get some type of recognition from the HR team, but that doesn't necessarily seem as personal, more so like part of their routine or their job, right? I really try to make it personal to let my staff know that, again, I see you, I appreciate you for this year work that you put in, but also for all these other years that you've put in. So when I first started in this particular role, that's exactly what I did. I wrote a thank you note to one of my employees. And I remember the next week, and I had sent it to her in her office because we're in different buildings and I wasn't going to see her right away. So the next week I was over in her office and we were doing one of our weekly check-ins. And she made a comment on the thank you card and just how much it meant to her, because that was the first time in her 16 years with the organization she had ever received a personal thank you card or a thank you note like that. So that, I mean, that just really sticks with me, and just really understanding that value. And I have also seen how I really think it has helped our relationship as well. And I see the way that this individual and her staff also try to show gratitude to me as well. Like they have stuck, little notes and some interoffice mail. Thanks for everything that you do as well.
Awesome. That's fantastic. What popped in my head is when I was at that same organization, there was an individual who was responsible for all of our grants and grant writing and sticking up with all the grant processes, which is crazy, by the way, and a really, really hard job. And she was having a really tough year. And it felt like we had an audit in there every week, literally.
Yes.
So I bought her a box of chocolates, and underneath every chocolate, I remember putting, I don't know what I used. If I used what is the thing you type in and it spits out a sticker? Whatever that is. I put every single audit that she had done over the last year at the bottom of this box of chocolate. So every time she picked up a piece of chocolate, she could see the audit that she did. So again, very meaningful to that person, and just knowing she was at her wit's end and that she was seen, appreciated, and heard.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'm curious, what's a takeaway for executives listening in today?
For executives, I would say, make sure that you are ingraining gratitude into your culture. And the way that you do that really is by leading by example. And I think the most important thing for that is just to remember, gratitude shouldn't be a one-time thing. It needs to be consistent, but more importantly, it needs to be authentic.
Absolutely. And that authenticity is key, because it can't just be a Band-Aid thing that goes on that is not meaningful.
Right. Because employees recognize that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's something for HR?
I would say for HR, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, gratitude doesn't fit into a single box. We know we have the diverse workplace, so we need to make sure that gratitude is diverse. So the takeaway for that would be work with your managers, work with your leadership team, and helping them to recognize that so that they're able to then consistently provide that gratitude to their employees.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for being with us. It is always, always a pleasure to do this. And if you are interested in learning more about gratitude, we do have a gratitude keynote that also leads into a workshop. So if you want something more facilitated for your organization, we can absolutely do that. So with that, we cannot wait to tune in with you next week as we continue our conversation about gratitude. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.